Well, you don't have to kill it. All right?
Well, it's 30 minutes before it starts.
That's all right. Just let it run then. Right?
Yeah. As long as I kill the audio so they're not hearing what's going on in the room.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and let's test to see if we can get that music playing. Yeah, you got it. It throws you off because it's like, okay, what am I looking at here? Jazzy play. Oh, I thought I saw it moving. No, I'm tripping. It says it's playing, but where is it? Where's the mixer window? That thing always.
Before you did
I don't know.
default something you did. Were you just system default?
Yeah.
Is that what you did before?
That was just to get the headphone, I think, working. I don't think it was.
This here? I did multiple. I'll go to it and see if I see it.
Add to disk. No. That's so weird.
I thought it was system.
Discover sequencing. That can't be the problem. Where's the audio mixer? Yeah, that's just us talking. Because that mic is live.
Yeah.
That's just us talking. Because that mic is live.
Yeah, I don't know that.
That's good. Because that mic is live. Oh, it's...
Applause. Good evening. Before we get started, this is a public hearing, and we are in a school, and I feel that it's very important that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I tell you, I served on the Bibb County Board of Education with Dr. Ella Carter. I know y'all remember Dr. Carter. And there was a big debate about one nation under God, whether or not there's a comma after one nation. Am I right? And so it's always funny when you're in a group of people. I hear some people that say one nation, pause, under God, pause. And then you hear some people like Dr. Carter, one nation under God. So I heard that out there today. Welcome to the public hearing for the 8th Congressional District. My name is Jason Downey, and I am the representative on the Georgia State Board of Education, representing the 8th Congressional District. I have been on the State Board of Education. It will be 2 years this month. I was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp in April of 2019. It is an honor to serve. I have been the vice chairman of the State Board of Education since January of 2020, and it absolutely is a privilege to serve on the board. A little bit about the Board of Education. There are 14 members, one representative for each congressional district in the state of Georgia. We're appointed by the governor for 7-year terms or to fulfill an unexpired term. When I was appointed in April of 2019, I was one of Governor Kemp's first 3 appointees to the State Board of Education to fill an unexpired term which expired on December 31st of 2019. He then reappointed me January 1st of 2020, so knock on wood, I'll be on the board for the next few years. And it has absolutely been a pleasure to serve. We've done a lot of great things despite what happened. People say weird things like the panini or the pan something. They don't want to call it the P word, the pandemic, which has thrown us topsy-turvy. And so we've done the best we can to try to deal with things through the pandemic. But I had this public hearing scheduled for March of 2020, and Ms. Stephanie worked with Ms. Debbie, and we had it set up and ready to go, and then the world came crashing down. We all know what happened. And so it is an honor to be here. This is my first town hall or public hearing as a state board member. State law requires that we have at least one, every board member have at least one public hearing or town hall meeting within their congressional district each school year. Unfortunately, I didn't get to have one last year, and so we're fulfilling Georgia law by having this one this school year. So the purpose of the hearing tonight is to hear from interested citizens and educators within this congressional district about the public education matters within the 8th Congressional District that are of importance to you. If you would like to speak tonight, please be sure to put your name on the sign-up sheet. It's located on the table just inside of the door. I think that we've picked that up, but it still may be out there. We've had a few people that have signed up to talk tonight, and we'll get to you in a few minutes. Before we get started, I want to say thanks to several people and groups. First of all, I want to thank Bibb County School System. How many educators do we have here from the Bibb County School System? Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that. I want to give a shout out to Dr. Curtis Jones. I know he couldn't be here tonight, but I want to thank him for allowing my first public hearing to sort of come back home to Bibb County, and I appreciate that. I want to thank Howard High School Principal Dr. Latoya Dennis Smith and her staff for their assistance with the logistics and setup for the hearing. We've reserved this room for an hour, and Georgia law, again, I keep going back to Georgia law, but this is statutorily required, and so we are required to have this hearing for 1 hour. And it's very specific. Georgia law says you can't have this on a Sunday, that it can be Monday through Friday, and it must start at 7 o'clock, and it has to be at least 1 hour, and if you do it on Saturday mornings, it has to be at 10 a.m. I didn't think y'all wanted to be here at 10 a.m. this Saturday, so I decided to do it tonight. Again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to introduce and thank Megan Frick, who serves as Communications Director at the Georgia Department of Education, or GDO as we call it. She's here tonight to assist with the hearing. and I appreciate that. I also want to thank Stephanie Hartley, who's been the liaison with the Bibb County Board of Education to help organize this. Here's a quick word about how we're going to conduct the hearing. I expect everyone here to conduct themselves in a polite and respectful manner. There will be no clapping or booing or other expressions of approval or disapproval of a speaker or speaker's remarks during the hearing. Secondly, as I indicated, the purpose of the hearing is for me to listen to your concerns. So I'm going to be listening to you. This isn't really, and Georgia Code does not anticipate that this becomes a Q&A, a question and answer session. This is just for me to hear the concerns within the congressional district. Now that being said, I'm going to try to respond to some of your questions if you have some, and we have received some online, and we gave people an opportunity to join in and live stream this, and also to send us questions in advance. So I'm going to try to respond to some of those, but if you do have a concern or a question, we're taking notes, we're going to write everything down, and we're going to make sure that someone gets back to you and responds to your concern within a reasonable amount of time. Thirdly, in order to conclude the hearing in a timely manner and hear from everyone who wants to speak, again, please be sure you put your name on the sign-in sheet if you want to speak. Technically, we are supposed to limit speakers to 3 minutes, but I'm not going to do that. So now if you get up here and you start talking for 10 or 15 minutes, I'm going to do this, tell someone to get the hook and tell you to stop. But I think that we're going to have some, I think we've got 4 or 5 people signed up tonight, and then we've got some other questions, and we may have some questions that stream in. So we're going to call the names of the speakers here in a few minutes, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let the speakers who have signed up go ahead and ask their questions or voice their concerns, and then we're going to get to some of the questions that were presented online, some of the emails that we had. And I do want to give a shout out to some people who are here, and I'm very happy and pleased that they were able to join us today. We have some special guests from the Bibb County Board of Education. We have President Darrell Morton, who is from District 7, which is at large. Thank you. And we have James Freeman. Where's James? There he is, from District 6. We have Dr. Lisa Garrett at large from District 8. Juwan, is that you in the mask? I can't tell. we got Juwan from District 4, and we've got Kristen Hamlin from District 3. Did I miss any other board members from Bibb County? Let's give them a round of applause. This is their home school. Give them applause. There you go. I also want to say thanks to Mike Hickman, Superintendent of Monroe County, okay, as well as Dr. Priscilla Doster, who is the chair of the Monroe County Board of Education. Thank you all for coming. Give them a round of applause. They actually only had... Oh, Stuart, okay. What zone are you, Stuart?
6.
Okay. Zone 6. Okay, well, thank you for coming. It's great. Thank you all for coming. And it was probably, what, a 10, 15-minute drive for you all to get down here. So, Stuart Pittman, thank you so much, Stuart. We also have from the Georgia State House of Representatives from District 140, Representative Robert Dickey. Representative Dickey, thank you for coming. And Robert, it's interesting, a lot of people ask me what the Board of Education does, and I say, we just listen to Robert. He tells us what we do, and we follow his lead. Robert has been a great advocate for public education in the state of Georgia. Sits on appropriations and helps figure out, and it's a tall order and a tough task to figure out the money. And that's the biggest thing. At the end of the day, a large portion, a majority of our state's budget is public education. And so Robert is one of many people up in Atlanta under the Gold Dome that, quite frankly, it's a year-round job, but they try to figure out how to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And it's a task, and I don't envy what you all do, but thank you for your hard work. Is there anyone here from an appointed official or an elected official that I've missed? Any county commissioners or any other state representatives or state senators that I have failed to introduce or give a shout out?
I'm here from Congressman Scott's office. But
From Congressman, okay, from Congressman Austin Scott's office. And what was your name?
Michelle Lee.
Okay.
But
Oh.
I don't need it.
Well, give her a round of applause anyway. Thank you so much. I'm glad you made it.
I didn't know he had someone here.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. All right. Anyone else that I'm leaving out? Okay. All right, well, I guess we can get started. I think we have a list. Do we have the list? Let's see if anybody else has signed up. So we'll take that a couple minutes. I think Megan's going to make sure that everyone that's signed up, and then we'll go down the list. Last time I checked, we had 4, and we've got a microphone here, I think. Yeah, there we go. I might want to go ahead and head to the middle. I think that the first speaker is going to be somewhere in the middle. I guess. Looks like everybody's in the middle. All clustered together.
Don't put it as a story, but I forgot the list.
No, you didn't forget the list. We were letting more people sign up. All right. So it looks like our first speaker, and again, we're supposed to limit it to 3 minutes. I'm not going to limit you to 3 minutes. Just promise me that you're not going to stand up here and take all night. Our first speaker is Allison Evans. And Allison?
Thank you. Good evening. It's an honor to be here with you. My name is Allison Evans, and I'm the CEO and President of the Methodist Home for Children and Youth, headquartered here in Macon, Georgia, but serving children across the state of Georgia. And I'm here to thank you for your leadership, for the support that the schools that are called Residential Treatment Center schools, which are located at the Methodist Home here in Macon, or we even have a program at Twin Cedars, Georgia Industrial Children's Home. But there's about 20 schools and programs located across the state of Georgia that are serving primarily foster kids who have experienced just a tremendous amount of trauma, and they are not able to function well in the traditional school system. And the state has responded so well by providing non-QBE money for our schools. And, Representative Dickey, you have been a leader and a listener to the nonprofits who serve these children, and we're grateful for that. We thank you for that non-QBE money and support. And in fact, the legislature this year also restored a position to the Department of Education that is going to serve as a liaison between the organizations and the state to make sure that these children get the extra help and support that they need. So I wanted to just say thank you to you. I wanted to share with you that our relationship with the Bibb County School District is as strong as it has ever been. Especially through COVID, serving the children that we've cared for. We have had amazing cooperation and support from the folks at Bibb County, from Dr. Jones, throughout all of his leadership, Dr. Perdita Dwight, and a special thanks and commendation to Ron Collier, who is retiring this year. We appreciate his leadership. And I just wanted to say, as you do your work, keep our children in mind. It's a small population, but it's an important population. And we are truly grateful for the acknowledgement the state of Georgia has made to make sure that these children get the extra care that they need to help them through their trauma. And I'm very proud to tell you that we had 10 kids eligible for high school graduation this year throughout the state of Georgia, and all 10 of them are going to walk. So thank you.
I don't know that there are any other programs or systems or districts that can brag about 100% graduation rate. So that's wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much, Ms. Evans. All right, next on our list we have Mr. Blake Sullivan, right beside him. Thank you for coming tonight, Blake.
So our very ambassador here today, not a good thing. Excuse this. First of all, Mr. Downey, I want to thank you for your leadership and service. 6 years ago, we instituted a program called Leader in Me here in Lincolnville. And it's a program about teaching leadership to our school children. And I'm happy to say that it's been a rousing success. And I want to thank the school board for continuing to support that program. And it's been a miracle to watch what's going on as far as kids learning soft skills, the leadership skills that they'll need to take into the workplace. Back when we raised the money to fund the Leader in Me for our K through junior high students, Sean Covey came down, and we had a meeting with Dr. Jones and Mr. Covey, and discussed the high school piece of the Leader in Me. I'm happy to say that we have implemented that now, and one of the things that came out of that was a request to have certification so that when our kids graduate from high school, they'll be able to take a piece of paper with them out into the workplace to say that they have the soft leadership skills that so many employers are searching so hard for today. I got word back about a month ago that, in fact, certification has found an agency to do that. Franklin County has. And next year they will offer that to our students beginning at Southwest High School. And we need a place to get funding for that. So 2 things come out of the certification. One is there'll be somewhere around 4 to 6 hours of college credit that the student can take advantage of by having that certificate. The second thing is that they now have a marketable skill to go into the workforce. And having that piece of paper follow them into their job will be very important for them to be able to show their potential employers that they have these skills, that they know them, that they've been certified, that they have learned them and know how to apply them. So I don't think it's right to ask the local school board to provide that funding, primarily because there'll be schools all over Georgia now that will have the high school piece and be searching the same thing. So this, in fact, is a state ask. And I would love for you and the board and everybody to look at how we can pay for that certification so that when a child, a young adult, walks down the aisle and gets their diploma, and now they have a piece of paper and a certificate that follows them through the rest of their life and shows that they are a leader and that they have the soft skills for that. So that's my ask for today, is to look into that. I think Jamie Cassidy here with the school district has got more information if you need it. I'd be happy to talk to you, and also the Covey Foundation. Franklin County would be helpful to give more information. So anyway, thank you so much for all you do, and appreciate you listening to me.
Thank you, Blake. Funny thing about Blake, the other day, there was a Jeopardy question that was actually about the 7 habits of highly successful people, and Blake took a screenshot of it on Jeopardy and then tweeted it. And it was about the Leader in Me, which is what that is based on, the 7 habits. So that is something that you're very passionate about. I've known that for years, and I appreciate that. And we have a board retreat coming up, a state board retreat, starting on Sunday, going through Tuesday, and we're going to be brainstorming about a lot of different things. And I'll bring this up, and I'll mention this to our superintendent and other board members, and sort of gauge their interest in that. And I'd love to hear and talk to you more about that. So that's great. Thank you for that. All right, our next speaker is Mr. Jim Bell. Jim? See, everybody's right there in the middle. Making it easy.
We lined up for you. So first off, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Downey, for your service and what all you do for our district. And I'd also like to thank all of the board members here and staff and administrators at our schools. You all had a very difficult year, and you all have done a phenomenal job educating our children through a very difficult period. So my question is actually, that I've seen legislation introduced both at federal and various state levels to change funding from school systems to, I believe the phrase they like to use is funding students, not systems. And I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Now, when you say funding students, not systems, can you elaborate on that a little bit, what you're asking?
So the legislation usually follows that the money is basically the parents can decide where their student goes to school and the money would follow them instead of them being allocated to a particular school district. And that, of course, would also allow it to go to homeschooling, private schooling, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Well, so you've got school systems and you've got the count, you've got FTE counts, okay? So then you've got QB funds that follow the FTE counts that the individual systems do. And I wish Ron were here. Ron Collier, who we've said is retiring this year, the money guy, can really break this down. But the funds do follow that count, and it's very specific. It even goes down to the school, and it's amazing when you look at the spreadsheet because you start talking about grade levels and different categories of where children may fall. So that goes through that way. And I think what you're talking about, and I'm trying to understand if maybe you're talking about the concept of the educational savings account, ESAs, or what some even say vouchers. And I don't know if that's what you're asking, but the notion that the money follows the actual child. So if a parent opts to keep a child at home for homeschooling, or opts to send them to a private school, even that money would follow them. And Robert, there was some legislation that came about this year that I think did not make it, I don't know if it didn't make it past the Hopper phase or exactly. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Kind of,
thank you. We did pass a special education account, raise that, but it's for fairly small numbers of students that need special education. Yeah, 504 plan. But it was you're right, it was a move forward to do that, but in my opinion, very small step. So, but it will benefit some students.
Thank you. Is that sort of along the line of what you're asking about?
Yeah.
The educational spend, because there was some pre-legislation, I believe, that was introduced this year regarding the educational spending accounts to the extent that I think Jim is talking about. Right.
It did not.
It didn't make it.
Yeah, the other one did not.
Right, but it was, House Bill 60.
Appreciate that.
And it did not make it through the session this year. So so the system that we still have in the state of Georgia, the funds follow the FTE counts, and Mike can speak a little bit about this, Superintendent of Monroe County. Those FTE counts that come out basically in October, that's when that's sent into the state and the money flows from the systems. And I understand what you're saying. The question, which is related to the educational spending account legislation that was proposed, following the student itself so that then the parent can decide what they want to do with the money. And that did not pass this year. I don't know if there's any interest in that coming back up again in 2022. It'll be an election year, so sometimes you see all kinds of crazy legislation in an election year. But I don't really know. Mike, did you have a follow-up?
I was just going to say, there's a lot involved with QBE. I mean, it's a formula, and then our accounts, the FTE accounts, I mean, they're based on each child and what the services that each child receives. So a lot of times you may get a certain amount for a certain special needs child that receives certain services would be more than just a student that did not receive those services. And so it's very complicated, but it is based on the children that you have in your school district.
Right.
And I think the bigger push here is talking about, I guess what the crux is at what point when you offer, whether it be, right now we provide money for students with special needs, and what was included in this last bill was if they were under a 504 to receive services and they were to go to a different, i.e. private school, somewhere else, they would receive the money to serve that child, in essence. And, I think there's both different thoughts about that. We all want what's best for children, but somehow how that happens, there's some debate about that. And as a public school, superintendent, we just want to make sure that we get the money that we need to serve nurture them. And so with that, we want to make sure we get our fair share of that to deal with the main population. And what we're afraid of is the main population, the appropriations that go to the school districts being siphoned off to go to other entities. And when as a school superintendent, I'm okay with that, but I think the accountability of what's expected should be equal as well. And that's where I guess I come across where, it's not apples to apples sometimes with the accountability measures and what's expected for like the public school system to serve a special needs child as opposed to a private school. A lot of times private schools don't have to serve special needs children. They can. And so it's become a political football a little bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think those public school employees and advocates want the money that's designed for public schools to stay in public school. I guess that's my perspective. So.
Thank you for that. Politics and education, it really becomes an unfortunate part of what we do, but it's the reality of it. And I appreciate everyone's comments, and Jim, thank you for your comments, and I hope, if that did not answer your question, come see me or email me, message me like you do, and we'll get a better answer. And we can even send you how that QBE is calculated, because it is very complex when you get down to the school level and the counts. I'd be happy to try to send something to you so you can see that. So, and Robert, thank you for your comments. It looks like we have one more speaker that's signed up, and that is Tara Edwards. Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Edwards. I am the parent of 2 Bibb County public school students, and next week they start taking the Georgia milestones. I'm very appreciative, as I imagine all parents are, for everyone at the state level, and also I think our local BOE supported that too, lowering the percentage of the final grade of the students from 20% down to 0.01%. I certainly wish that we weren't having to take them at all. But as we go forward, I would request that you continue to use that lower percentage. The effects of the last year are going to stay with our students for a very long time. I have students that luckily do fairly well in school, and this has been an incredibly difficult year even for them. And the people that need special services have suffered the most. I would love to never see them be 20% again, and that they were never a barrier to promotion. But I would ask that as you have those conversations with the state BOE and with Richard Woods, that we keep requesting the federal government to allow us to lower those percentages so that our students are not going to fall further and further, suffer more and more over the next few years. Because as I said, this is not a one-year issue. And it would be wonderful to simply have those tests be a guide for what the students need the following school year and not determine their fate, whether they graduate from 3rd, 5th, 8th, and high school. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And so just a little elaboration on that. When President Trump was still in office, we, at the superintendent, requested that we receive a waiver, much like we were granted in 2020 for the 2020 school year, that we be granted a waiver that we not have to have these standardized tests. And under the Trump presidency, we were denied that waiver. And that was near the end of his term, and so the thought was that perhaps under President Biden's tenure, that it would be, there would be a different sort of perspective of that. So a new waiver was requested from the Biden presidency. Now, I want to say that it was denied, but what was born from that was this 0.01 concept. You still have to take it, but it doesn't have to have value, for lack of a...
It has to count for something.
Has to count for something, okay? And so... 20.01, and that was what we as the board, with the superintendent's recommendation, went through. We were a little surprised at first because we thought, and signals that we got from the change in the U.S. Department of Education would be that we would be granted that waiver. But no one was granted a waiver. No one in the country. And I think part of that is that at the time we got word that the waiver had been denied a second time, the new Secretary of Education had not taken office. And so there's that transition period, and I think that to err on the side of caution, that was the directive that was given. Has to count for something, but there wasn't really any directive that had to be 10 or 20 or some outrageous percent. So we made the move to make it 0.01%. We do not know, because again, we're still in the first 100 days of the Biden presidency, and it takes a while for a new Secretary of Education to sort of get their bearings. It will be interesting to see for the 21-22 school year what directives we have coming out of the U.S. Department of Education. And, you know, people ask, I get the question a lot, well, what do you do from a state level? I feel very strongly about local control, and I feel very strongly we have school districts and we have local boards of education. We have charter schools who have their own boards and autonomy, and then we have state charter schools, and then we have state schools. And I feel very strongly that these schools have to have, and these districts have to have, autonomy to do what they think is best for their school district. And so to that end, the question about, are we going to open the schools up in August and September? I get that question a lot, and my response is, I hope so, but I hope it's safe to do that. But I don't know in Columbia County, or in Chattahoochee County, or in Fulton County, or DeKalb County, what is best for them. That local board, and under our state law, and the way that the local boards of education have power, they decide what is best for their local school district. And so when that goes up, you have the state board of education and the state education system, or GDO, and we sort of oversee, and we establish what the curriculum would be. We are told from the state legislature, here's the budget that we have decided this is what the tax revenue allows us to do in a given year. Here's the budget, and now disperse the funds. But then we also have a U.S. Department of Education, which was formed under President Jimmy Carter many years ago. And it has been the source of a lot of debate. And I don't want to get into the political questions about U.S. Department of Education, but when you have federal monies involved, which every public school is going to have some federal money of some sort. I mean, invariably they're going to. There become questions from the top, because they can start withholding massive amounts of grant monies if you don't follow along with what they mandate. And things like testing and standardized testing, and saying there has to be a way to, in theory, compare Kentucky kids to Georgia kids to Florida kids to California kids. So we have to have some semblance of testing. That comes from the U.S. Department of Education. They say you have to do it. If you don't, we're going to withhold RT3, Race to the Top funds. We're going to withhold Title I grant money. We're going to withhold all these grant monies that some districts absolutely have to have. And some districts are more reliant upon federal funds than other districts, but every district would crumble if they did not have that federal assistance. And so I understand what you're saying. I'm with you. I was part of the group that from the get-go felt very strongly I wanted that waiver, me personally. And it's not that I don't think we should hold our students and our educators accountable for what they learn and what's being taught, but we are in a pandemic. We're going to feel the after effects of this pandemic for a generation. We really are. And I've got a 7th grader here. She's cowering. She don't want me to talk about it. But I think about the remediation efforts that we have to start thinking about and the time lost. And for me, I was sort of thinking, okay, well, if they grant us a waiver, we don't have to spend time focusing on a test for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however, whatever grade you're in, how much time is spent testing. We can use that time to continue to catch up, maybe remediate if we get caught up. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. So we're we're back in the same situation where we've got, and it's really a hard position to be in, because now we've got a test, and you've got some kids that are like, well, why? If it doesn't matter, here we are, we've got to take it. And, I hate to say it is what it is, I hate that phrase, but I don't know what next year's going to bring, but I think that we'll get some guidance from the U.S. Department of Education over the coming months as the new Secretary of Education sort of gets his bearings. So thank you for that comment. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak, that didn't sign up to speak, who suddenly had a moment where they decided they want to speak? Robert, I saw you put your mask down. If you want to make a quick comment. Yes, absolutely.
There you go. I'd just like to say thank you, Jason, for the job you do representing Georgia on the school board. I've had the privilege of working with many of y'all. Went to a retreat a couple years ago, and I just couldn't be more impressed with your board, working with the legislature on policy as well as funding. I just think it's come a long way, and I just thank you and the rest of your board and Superintendent Woods for working with us. I know it's lots of issues and some political differences come up and some financial budget differences from time to time. But public education is the largest part of our state budget from revenue, and so it's a challenge. But I think Georgia is in a great position there, and I know these superintendents know it from federal funds, and our state economies come back. We put a lot of revenue back there, and our local school board with taxing local citizens. It's a real partnership, and I just it's difficult sometimes to get all those different together, but I think Georgia's in a great place going forward, and thank for the leadership at state level and local level to keep it that way. And I just hope this pandemic we can all get our students back in person and really get engaged. And I just want to thank Blake for his engagement with leaders and me, and encourage you and the board to look at some of those soft skills throughout our state. I think it's very, very important. I know as an employer, a lot of us are really looking for those type skills when they leave high school and go into either higher ed or technical school or straight to the job market. Those type things are so important there, and just so needed. So, but anyway, just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Enjoy being here.
It's I know it's tough for when the legislators get up there in Atlanta and there's all kinds of legislation. Something that's constant every year. They've got to come up with a budget. That's required by law. There has to be a budget, and there's got to be public education. So, like what Robert was saying, and I forget what percent. Is it 70% of the budget or something?
It's 42 to 3%.
A large portion, a massive portion, billions and billions of dollars are. You start with education. You really do, because it's the backbone. And so you've got so many people up there, and I appreciate when legislators give us a call and ask us as the state board members who have communication in our communities with our superintendents. And I've tried to make it a point to visit with superintendents throughout our district. I had lunch with Mike Hickman from Monroe County just a few weeks ago, and I've been to Tipp County, and I've been to Wilkinson County. Been to Cockwood County. I have tried to reach out and find out what the needs in the local districts are. And that's my job. And then it's Robert's job, if he's got a question, to contact one of us and to find out. And that's why it's important for us to have those personal relationships with people like Robert who care about public education and want to know. And so he calls me up and says, Jason, we've got this issue on this, and what are your thoughts on it? That doesn't mean we're always going to agree on things. And Robert and I agree on some things and disagree on some things. But that's important, and it hasn't always been that way. Let's put it that way. It has not always been the best of relationships between the Georgia Department of Education, the Superintendent's Office, the State Board of Education, and the State Legislature, and the Governor's Office. And I think, quite frankly, we have right now the best relationship that I think the state has seen in a long time. and this is not unique to now. I can tell you a funny story about Senator Johnny Isaacson. Senator Isaacson ran against Zell Miller for governor many years ago. Zell whipped his tail. And Johnny was done with politics. He said, I've given up politics forever. And Governor Miller had an issue with the State Board of Education. And I believe Superintendent Shrenko was in office at the time. And it was a disaster zone. And Governor Miller called Johnny Isaacson up and said, I want to appoint you to the State Board of Education as the chair. I'm going to tell everyone I want their resignation. And I want you to help me recruit a Board of Education. Start from scratch. And let's build credibility back in the State Board of Education. And so that was in the 90s. I can't remember what year, 96 or 98. So I think it was 96. So there have been tenuous relationships for a long time. And I think right now it's the strongest it's been in the last 25 years. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on the board, but I really think that we've got communication with the governor's office, the superintendent's office, at the State House, Senate, with the Board of Education. And so I applaud what you all do, and I thank you for coming tonight. Any other comments or questions? I know I was going to see if we had any questions that have popped up online since then. And we are doing it, by the way, this is the first time this has ever been done this way. We're doing this live and in person, and we're doing it online as well. So we're trying this out, the new norm, again, phrases that we hate to say, but I think that we're going to see this be the new norm. And I'm excited that we're able to host this that way. Did we have any questions?
So just so everyone is familiar, Mr. Downey is receiving these questions. He's being given a copy. So he will have your questions to review, and if you left your contact information, he will be able to reach out to you. Mr. Downey, you have a question and comment that came in from Twiggs County Superintendent Dr. Mac Bullard, who I believe is watching live right now. Shout out to Dr. Bullard.
Hey, Doc.
Who was just here with us in Bibb. He says, Mr. Downey, thank you for your support of the 8th Congressional District. There is very poor broadband and cellular connectivity in Twiggs County. During the pandemic and currently, many students are still unable to access virtual instruction due to poor Wi-Fi connectivity. We need stronger cellular access to allow all students the opportunity to benefit from virtual instruction. We know this is a priority with the Georgia DOE. Will you advocate for cellular companies to urgently install cellular towers and increase broadband capabilities in Twiggs County?
Absolutely, whatever it takes. That is an infrastructure crisis, and has been. And I think that the pandemic has brought that to the forefront, that we have, when you look at the way the state of Georgia is set up, we have, in the 8th Congressional District, particularly in the 8th and in the 2nd Congressional District, there are a lot of rural school districts where kids have no access to internet unless they go park in the McDonald's parking lot, or they go to the public library, if there is a public library. And so I think it is critical, and Twiggs County is one of those counties where it gets forgotten a lot of times. And so anything it takes to advocate to get more broadband, and with regard to the cell companies, I'll do what I need to do to try to get them to help out with that. I will say that one of the initiatives that we've seen pushed, and I was in Gray, actually the governor came to an announcement for in that particular case, it was Tri-County EMC and another EMC, making an announcement trying to get broadband to be made available through the EMCs. And within the next 2 years, we're hoping that there'll be, I think it's over 200,000 homes that are customers of these EMCs that will have access to broadband internet. And I hope that will impact Twiggs County and other counties within the 8th Congressional District and throughout the state of Georgia to get quicker internet. Robert, do you have some thoughts on that? I know that that was actually passed last year in 2020, and now we're starting to see it come to fruition. So help is on the way, and a lot of these EMCs, they're setting it up, and they're saying in less than 2 years they'll have the internet rolling, and so that's exciting.
Yeah, we've come a long way, and we've appropriated some state funds this year, $20 million, I think, from Georgia. We got federal funds coming, and EMCs were allowed to get into the business. They were not allowed prior to last year. I'm so glad we saw fit to let them partner with other people and even just from our local school systems. I think Monroe County even contributed to service. So I hope some other local school systems, if they're financially able to partner with EMCs and local county government and all. It's going to take everybody. It's massively expensive to do that, but I think people, I know the government and citizens and parents have figured out in the last few years it's an essential service. I mean, we focus so much on transportation and water and sewer, but broadband is essential for so much, and education being at the top of the list probably. So I think you'll see some pretty quickly deployment in the state.
Southern Rivers in central Georgia, I know they're already working on it because I've seen the trucks.
Correct. They hit the road running. They sure they did. So, but we do have some challenges and some other real sparsely populated areas of our state. So I think some schools are being innovative about buses with it on it and doing those type of things. So yes, I think federal, local, and state have realized that it's an essential service that we've got to get. So we're moving there.
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, it's, I don't want to throw Atlanta under the bus. Well, yeah, I'll throw Atlanta under the bus. Atlanta likes to think about Atlanta. And it is refreshing that we have a government that, and this is a non-political statement, a non-partisan statement. It is good that we have a government, big G government, that is looking out for rural Georgia and is looking out for the needs of rural Georgia through infrastructure improvement, which includes broadband. And that is a truly nonpartisan or a bipartisan issue. It just so happens that Governor Kemp is who is in office now, but I believe if it were a Democrat in office, if it were anyone in office, if it were someone that didn't have a party affiliation, that would be something they would advocate for. And I'm very happy that that will continue to expand, and I look forward to the day when every kid in the state of Georgia has fast internet, not just internet, but we're talking about now with virtual being something we're going to see happen more and more, because and the educators are shaking their head. Virtual has been mandated. Systems have to offer virtual, and it's been that way for years. But now, with this pandemic, we've seen more families opt for virtual. And one of the things about virtual is being able to go on Zoom or Teams or Skype or whatever you use and it not hiccup or you know how it'll do. You'll be standing there, all of a sudden someone will be frozen and you'll look, I can't hear you, you're waving your hand, and that's a disaster, because how can a kid learn when every time they turn around the internet's locking up or the teacher's internet's locking up? Or they go, you know, I read someone was talking the other day about YouTube and being able to use YouTube, watching an educational video. And I know there's some bad stuff on YouTube, but there's some good stuff too. And having to go through the ads and then having to watch the video and it freezing up. And these are problems that I think broadband will alleviate. So, Dr. Bullitt, I hope that answered your question. Thank you for bringing that up. Do we have any more? All right, good.
Okay, also watching live with us this evening is Miss Stacy Ivy from Thomas County. She asked that you please recognize or compensate educators' families whose loved ones made the ultimate sacrifice by returning to work and dying of COVID due to contracting it from the building or bus.
Okay, thank you for that. And what was her name again?
Stacy Ivy, and she's from Thomas County.
Thank you, Ms. Ivy. You know, the 8th Congressional District, it's one of the most narrow congressional districts. It goes all the way from Monroe County up the north, all the way down to the Florida state line. So you've got part of Lowndes County, you've got Brooks County, and then you've got Thomas County. And so I've got Thomas County and then Thomasville City schools down there. And I appreciate it. It's good to know people all the way down in South Georgia are paying attention. My wife's from South Georgia. Not far from there, and I appreciate your thoughts, and I will certainly pass those along to the superintendent and to other board members and see what we can do. And I hope, has she left her contact information?
She has
Great.
left her contact.
Okay, great. And someone will be in touch with you.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Also watching live is Ms. Belgrave from Bibb County. Her questions are more focused on Bibb County. She has two, so I'll read them together. The first question, why are books for English and math no longer provided in Bibb County? Other counties like Houston County have books. Her second question, what will Bibb County do with the money provided by federal government?
Okay. Well, I'll look to my Bibb County school board members. And I appreciate those questions. As I mentioned earlier, with sort of the hierarchy of public education in the state of Georgia, is that we have local school boards that make decisions that they deem the best for their district. And I have all the faith in the world in the people in Bibb County that have done a wonderful job for years, that they have made the decisions looking at the data, getting advice from Dr. Jones and the administration in Bibb County. And so that is not a Godot or a state board of education situation or question. It totally is up to the Bibb County Board of Education. You all don't have to comment if you don't want to, but we'll certainly get her contact information, and if one of you would like to reach out to her and answer that question, if you have concerns and that sort of thing. So, thank you for that. More? Good.
The other questions were and concerns were submitted anonymously prior to this event. We did have the feedback question open for people to submit the questions ahead of time in case they could not be here with us this evening. The first one is from Bullitt County, and it just is a note about concern about the safety of our children here in the Bullitt County public school system.
Right. In Bullitt County, Statesboro, that is in the 12th Congressional District, and I have had communication, I believe, even though they identified themselves as anonymous, I believe that individual emailed me on my Godot email address, and we've been in communication, and I'm going to refer her to Matt Donaldson, who is the representative on the State Board of Education from the 12th Congressional District. He was newly appointed. He's from Twin Cities, he's actually the mayor of Twin City, Georgia, and I will speak to Matt at the board retreat this weekend and pass this along to him. Thank you for that.
Okay. So, and then you have seniors that attend Rockdale Magnet School of Science and Technology started the school under the requirements of 2 AP science classes to graduate. However, during the final semester of their junior year, we learned that the requirement had been changed to 3 AP classes. My question is, why weren't these students held to the standards that were applicable when they enrolled in the school, as well as those in lower grades? It seems that this change would take effect for entering freshmen. While no one could have prepared for a pandemic that has kept students learning virtually for a year, it's the students that have been shortchanged in terms of receiving the in-person instruction and support they need. Now, as my child is struggling in an AP class that she wasn't initially required to take in a year, that has been completely virtual since her junior year, I feel the Georgia DOE should make considerations for these students.
Thank you for that. And whomever this is, I know they, again, did not identify themselves. It was anonymous. But Rockdale County is in the 4th Congressional District, and that appointee, that representative, is Ms. Lisa Kennemore, who's been on the board for some time and was just reappointed in January of 2020 and will serve another 7-year term. I will forward this information to her. I think this is probably more of a local issue. Megan, do you think that's probably more of a Rockdale County? Again, we talk about what the state can do and what local school districts can do. I think that is probably more of a Rockdale County Board of Education question, but I'm still going to forward this on to Ms. Kennemore, and hopefully she can find out who that is and get in contact with them and provide them with more information.
And then you have 2 that came in that are very similar, so I'll read one of them. Why are the custodians through Etowah service getting treated different than the Floyd County custodians? We are not receiving the $1,000 like the Floyd County workers, while we work very hard to keep the schools clean and safer for the kids and staff. We are not getting treated right, while we should be treated the same as hard as we work.
And there were 2 other anonymous emails. They were all, I don't know if they were written by 3 separate individuals, or if someone went on, but I understand the concern. This school district is in the 14th Congressional District, and that is represented by Ms. Fenna Petty, who is another relatively new member who was appointed by Governor Kemp. And I will forward this on to Ms. Petty, and again, I will see her at the retreat this weekend, and will pass that along to her. One comment I did want to say, unfortunately, and this is coming from the Department of Education, State Department of Education, to the extent that we have a comment to make on that. Unfortunately, we're not able to pay third-party vendors with the bonus funds, which is why contractors don't qualify for the $1,000 bonus. Certainly not a statement about the value of your work and position, but simply an issue of paying employees versus vendors. We've encouraged others in this situation to talk to the company you contract with and ask them to step up and make that bonus. And so I hope that that sheds some light on that. But again, I will pass that on to Ms. Petty. Any more? All right. And elaborating on that, I had a few comments because there's been some questions about the $1,000 bonus. Who's eligible for that bonus? There was a $1,000 retention bonus that the state legislature approved this year. And the bonus payments are intended for all school-level faculty and staff in Georgia's K-12 public schools, including but not limited to teachers, paraprofessionals, school counselors, school psychologists, school nurses, custodians, bus drivers, school nutrition staff, media specialists, clerical staff, and administrative assistants, principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches, and therapists. The CARES Act funding Godot is using to provide the bonuses is being used for initiatives in K-12 schools, but the Governor's Office and Department of Early Care and Learning are working together to provide a $1,000 bonus for eligible pre-K staff through a separate fund source. School-based part-time employees will receive a $500 bonus. And educators who are not currently employed by a local school system in Georgia, unfortunately, are not eligible for the bonus. A local school district cannot use the funds for any other purpose. All funds allocated for the $1,000 retention bonus must be used for that purpose. That purpose will be stated in the grant award notification that each local school district receives. Once the funding for that bonus is allocated, districts should work to provide the payments to employees within the 2021 fiscal year. Payments should not be held until fiscal year 22. And a local school district can add to that if they want. If they have the money and they want to provide an additional amount of money above the $1,000 provided by the state, they can do that. We recommend that they hold on expanding the bonus until the list of job codes funded by Godot has been released to avoid double funding any individual's retention bonus payment. So that is that. We've got a couple minutes, so I received a couple other emails, and I wanted to read those to you, some questions that I had. And one of them says, and this will be, this sort of goes in line with what one of our speakers had talked about. As a former foster youth and teacher, I am concerned about educational equity as it relates to foster youth. In order to change the statistics of 60 to 80% of foster youth becoming homeless or incarcerated, we need to do something drastically different. As a former foster youth, I never encountered a former foster youth as a role model, teacher, or school administrator. What policies or programs are you committed to implementing or promoting that will increase the high school graduation rate among youth in foster care? In Georgia, that rate is at around 11%. What should Godot do to engage former foster youth with lived experiences in improving educational outcomes for youth in foster care? How would you encourage Godot and school districts in creating equity opportunities for former foster youth? How would you suggest that Godot and school districts encourage former foster youth to become educators and school administrators? And those are some great points. And again, I look forward to, it was perfect timing to have this evening with our retreat coming up, being able to engage in honest conversations with Godot, with other board members, and find out what we can do and try to get back to everyone. And I really hope that we're diligent about doing that, get back to the people that have asked these questions, and if we can't get them answers, point them in the direction where they can get the answers. I've got one final email I want to read to you very quickly. and we've already talked about some of this. How would the milestone test and year-end results be accurately interpreted on behalf of students in Georgia public schools if these tests or assessments do not offer a reliable measure of their academic progress or achievement amid an unprecedented global pandemic and uncertainty? Statistically, in the name of fairness and insight for efficiency, some data should remain unaltered to reduce risks for error or misinterpretation. Otherwise, it looks as if states might use lower scores only to justify the need to ask for more funding. How does the Georgia Department of Education vet COVID-19 funding to determine the amount individual local education agencies receive? Additionally, if a list of district distribution is available to the public, where might I look to obtain a copy? Now, I'll comment on that. That actually is available if you go to the Georgia Department of Education, our Board of Education's meeting minutes, and in our meeting agendas, which you can find on the Godot website. We have published everything as it relates to CARES Act money, the ARM money, everything. And it talks about the formula used. It's tied to Title I, and the formula that's used to disperse the money to the counties, and it even shows you how much each individual county and each individual school, if they are an independent school, charter school, receive in all phases. So that answers that question. The next question was, how does the department speak specifically to amplify youth voice for statewide education and COVID-related policy issues that address student needs and re-engage learning? If so, what are some strategies the Georgia Department of Education and State Board is doing to address and counter the growing and evolving youth racialization for preventing violent extremism in Georgia public schools? I want to sort of close with this thought. We have had a lot happen in the last year, and it's a lot to adjust to, and it's a lot for us to chew on, so to speak. And so it is important that we, on boards of education, whether it's local or state, continue to have conversations and understand how we can provide the best education for our students. Because at the end of the day, our future and the future workforce and the future of the country depends upon what we do right now. And we don't have that crystal ball to look into the future to see how we did. We have to make the moves now and know that what we're doing, and you never really know, but you have to just have faith and make sure with data backing it up that you're doing the right things. And so we've had a lot going on in our society over the past year. We've had a pandemic. We've had just a lot of cultural issues that have come up in this country. We have people asking a lot of questions, and it will change the way that we do things in public education. And what we have to do is we just have to make sure that we do the right things. And so I encourage all of you to stay engaged. The fact that you're here, spending time with me on a Thursday night for over an hour now, shows how much, to me, that you care about public education. And I appreciate that. That means more to me than I could ever tell you. And I hope that you all stay engaged. And if you have any ideas or thoughts, email me anytime or call me. Listen, it is important that we all work together as best we can. And there's not one person that has every solution, every problem. So we have to all work together. Before we take off, do we have any more questions, any more comments? Mr. Morton, we got you coming up right here.
All right, let me go in the middle when I'm supposed to
First off, Jason, we're so glad to have you here. You're one of our own. And I know Jason may not admit this, but he came on the board at a very difficult time for the system. We were at the lowest point that it could possibly be, and he was one of those individuals who helped us turn things around. So, Jason, we appreciate you a great deal, and we're proud. Yeah, please give him a hand.
I'll send you the 20 minutes.
And I did want to mention, I think it was Ms. Belgrave who asked about the American Rescue Plan funds. We're in fact having a public hearing on May the 12th, which is a Wednesday at 5 p.m. at the Professional Learning Center on Riverside Drive. So I invite her to come and hear the plan of what we're going to do with this transformative amount of money. And believe me, Dr. Lori Rogers and her staff take very seriously the obligation they have to do the best they can and also be transparent and accountable to our various constituents. So And also, please give me her contact information so we can answer other questions as well. But I just want to say thank you, welcome, welcome back to Bibb County, and just let us know if we can do anything for you.
Thank you, Daryl. Any final thoughts? All right, I'm gonna embarrass a couple of people here in a second. I've been doing this for 2 years now. Before I actually served on the Bibb County Board of Education, as Daryl told you. So I have spent a lot of time serving on education boards for 6 years now, and even before that, I served on my daughter's elementary school council at Dames Ferry Elementary School. And so the two people that should be given the applause are the people that loan me out to the public and let me do this. And so I want to give a shout out to my wife, Connie Downey, who is a counselor and has been at Dames Ferry Elementary for 21 years. They just, yesterday or Wednesday, got STEM certification. And so we are very excited about that. And we're very excited. And then my daughter, Kate Downey, who is, for those of you that follow me on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, you see all my pictures of Kate Downey, pitcher extraordinaire. She's at Gray Station Middle School. And so I thank you all for letting me do this and continuing to spend time away from you all with emails and phone calls and having to go to Atlanta for these meetings. So if there are no other comments or anything good for business, we have fulfilled the 1 hour requirement and we stand adjourned. And thank you all.